This is the moment that a 40-year-old NGO worker was arrested. The two girls behind him are both underage and have been locked in his bedroom for 5 days. Several years ago, he came to Cambodia claiming to be a doctor and was given a job by a local NGO. But he isn't a doctor and he never has been. Seen here being led off by local police, his intention was not to help, but to abuse the very people who depended on him.
Sexual exploitation and abuse by our own staff is an abhorrent crime. It will not be tolerated. I call on each and every one of you to carry out your work with honor, pride, and integrity. The trust people place in us must never be broken by despicable acts of sexual exploitation and abuse. The United Nations and all non-governmental organizations worldwide have zero tolerance for such behavior. It is our collective responsibility to uphold the highest standards and protect all those we serve.
The UN is the ray of hope. It is frequently what people are so looking forward to, is to have the blue helmets come in to save them.
In the eyes, in the hearts of those people in the countries where we operate, they do look to us. And this is why it is catastrophic, you know, if the single misconduct of one or a few just destroys this. It destroys hope, and that, I think, is simply unacceptable.
UN and non-government organizations are working in partnerships. If there are problems for one, there are problems for all.
We have to promote a culture which makes it absolutely clear that this kind of behaviour is totally unacceptable.
It's 8 a.m. in Cambodia's capital city, Phnom Penh. Already the streets are filled with activity as residents and tourists prepare for another day in this vibrant capital city. The man on this motorbike looks just the same as everyone else. He isn't. The street where he is standing is home to a man suspected of child abuse. Until recently, he was employed by an NGO working with children. The man on the motorbike is an undercover investigator employed to watch him.
There are two investigators at the moment here. One is staying right in front of his entrance to the guest house, and the other one is over there to see if he might be coming with children through other entrance.
Sailor Samliang is the director of Action pour les Enfants, or APPLE for short. APPLE works closely with the Cambodian National Police to protect vulnerable children from becoming victims of sexual abuse. Since it began in 2003, APPLE has contributed to the successful investigation of more than 250 cases related to NGO workers sexually abusing children.
Generally, people would not suspect someone working with the NGO when they are going out with children, hanging out with children, talking to children, touching children, because the general public would have the first impression that this is just part of their work.
We cannot understate the effect that abusive behaviour can have on a child. And how much worse is it when that person is there to help them, and because they're from an agencies like ours, it's so much more difficult to complain about that because nobody believes them. Nobody would believe a word of a child that somebody from an agency like Save the Children has done something to harm them.
No matter what organisation they work for, when acts of sexual exploitation and abuse are carried out by anyone working in international aid, the effects are felt by everyone.
I thought Dave was good because he brought food and bread to my village. I thought he was a good person. I didn't guess that he was actually a very bad man who could do these things to me.
Seen here before his arrest, Glory met this NGO worker at a rubbish dump near to her house, where he came regularly to distribute food to impoverished families. She was just 15 when he lured her into his bedroom and brutally raped her. The slogan of his organisation was, "Help us, help them."
When we went to his house, he cooked for me, but then he took me to his bedroom and locked the door. He turned the TV on real loud. I felt so scared. I shouted for help, but no one came to help because nobody could hear me.
Glory was brave enough to report the attack, and the perpetrator is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence in Bangkok. But had anyone done a basic check on him beforehand, they would have seen that he had been previously convicted of rape in the UK, and perhaps Glory's painful ordeal could have been avoided.
Any agency that thinks that they're not in danger of this is, I'm afraid, living in a fool's paradise. We have to have high standards around recruitment and onboarding and training and monitoring.
When you're faced with BBC reporters asking you pretty direct questions about behavior of UN staff and what's going on in the country where you're serving, you'd really like to be able to say, categorically, there's absolutely no bad behavior of any UN staff. And that, unfortunately, isn't always the case.
He buys girls for other men and...
In 2008, the film The Whistleblower was released to global acclaim. Based on a true story, it gave a disturbing account of how the demand for sex workers by UN peacekeepers and international aid workers in the Balkans during the 1990s was responsible for fueling the trade in trafficked women and girls from neighbouring countries with devastating consequences.
Are you sure you want to go ahead with this? Because you know there'll be no going back after.
Yes, ma'am.
Vanessa Redgrave plays the part of Madeleine Rees, who was the head of office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the Balkans at the time. She believes that the realities of what went on as portrayed in the film were just the tip of the iceberg.
Sadly, I don't think there's anybody who could put their hands up in Bosnia and say, none of our people were involved. I think it'd be extraordinarily difficult for anyone to say that.
Some people think they are helping women when they buy prostituted sex. They're not. Buying sex harms individual women and children and encourages criminal activity. When children enter the sex industry, they become trapped in a dangerous world from which it is almost impossible to escape.
When I arrived, I saw people on the street with guns, military people. I asked myself, where are we?
Amal was 16 when she boarded a plane from her home in Morocco. She thought she was heading to Europe to work as a waitress. Instead, she was trafficked to Liberia, where she was forced to work as a prostitute.
After 1 week at Sugar Club, I was no more a virgin. I have lost my virginity. My country is Arabic, Muslim. For me, this is a big problem.
At the time, Amal thought that the only people who could save her were the UN. She described her relief when she saw a UN car pull up outside the club. But the driver wasn't coming to save her. Instead, Amal told us that he raped her and then reported to the brothel owner that she was trying to escape.
It's vital that no one, United Nations personnel or other humanitarian workers, it's very important that they do not buy prostituted sex because it's dangerous. It's dangerous, first of all, because it attracts criminals. It attracts criminals because they see that this is an environment where they can make money. It attracts them because they see a market. This fuels the trade and trafficking of women and children, and we must not be a magnet.
In some countries, prostitution is legal and regarded as a profession. In other parts of the world, it is a crime punishable by death. But no matter what laws a country adheres to, all UN, NGO and IOM staff worldwide have a duty to help and protect. Seeing prostitutes for sex, whether on or off duty, is banned and totally unacceptable.
Senior managers at IOM or any other organization have to be not only above reproach, they have to be role models, they have to lead by example, and they cannot make any distinction between their professional responsibilities and their private life.
Survival sex is one in which women have no choice, where they believe that the only way that they're going to make any money, where they'll be able to keep their job or get a job, is through engaging in sex or in relationships with individuals. It is by no means a relationship of equals.
Mikael is 3 months old. His father is a UN worker who used to give his mother biscuits in exchange for sex. When she became pregnant, he left and has not been heard from since.
The father of Mikael used his financial power. He said, "You become my friend, you pay me a visit." Every time she came, he would give her a little something. Some food, nothing significant, just enough to live on for one day.
Mikael's mother survives on less than $1 a day by selling bananas. Now this money must stretch to feed and clothe Mikael as well. But growing up in poverty will not be his only problem.
When Congolese children see that their skin color is different, they will call them names. They will say things like Muzungu Tali Tali, which means you are not white and you are not black either.
There are other consequences for victims besides possible discrimination, including the very real threat of HIV and unwanted pregnancy. But it is the robbing of a person's humanity that is perhaps the greatest harm of all.
I think the first damage is the damage made on the beneficiaries, because these are the people that we are there to serve.
It is a crime, a totally unacceptable crime, in relation to which we must have zero tolerance, that any humanitarian worker profits from this extreme vulnerability and tries to exert any kind of sexual exploitation or abuse.
UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, still provides humanitarian assistance to those in need. However, its more day-to-day role is in providing a wide range of public services in a more developmental context. Unfortunately, sexual exploitation and abuse is as problematic in development settings as it is everywhere else.
We have had a steady stream of about 10 cases officially reported, agency-wide per year, and a concern that the actual number may be significantly higher due to the extreme sensitivity of reporting and survivors coming forward.
In 2008, Maria Mohammedi was asked to investigate the allegations made by an UNRWA beneficiary that a senior camp officer had raped her in the storeroom behind his office.
We found a mattress, very old mattress, very dirty mattress, because a lot was going on this mattress.
Some people might think that the fear of retribution for committing adultery would prevent people from carrying out acts of sexual exploitation and abuse in this society. This case was the very opposite. So confident was the abuser that nobody would dare to report on what he was doing. He would go so far as to ask his colleague, who subsequently came forward as a witness, to pass him the keys to his storeroom and then leave when women came to visit.
It's a classical example of somebody who abuses his power, you know, a systematic abuse of a beneficiary who was in a position of weakness.
Undoubtedly, the greatest harm is that done to the victims of sexual exploitation and abuse. However, the damage done to the organisations themselves that employ perpetrators is also catastrophic.
It has a reputational effect on the agency. It brings damage to the agency through publicity, and also because somehow it breaches the trust between our staff, UNRWA's management, and the Palestine refugees that we have been serving and that we continue to serve for so many years.
During the investigation, it was quickly realised that the person who came forward and reported was not the only victim. Maria and her team soon discovered that the perpetrator had actually been abusing numerous different women in his store cupboard for many years. It was the fear of reporting that enabled him to get away with it for so long.
They must report it, because if they don't, then they are just contributing to the impunity of the offenders.
Just 2 months after the initial report, the perpetrator was summarily dismissed from the agency, losing all the entitlements he acquired following his long career with the UN.
Any individual who commits acts of sexual exploitation and abuse will be disciplinary sanctioned in accordance with our rules. And if there is evidence to support sexual exploitation or abuse, these cases may, upon consultation with the Office of Legal Affairs, be referred to national authorities for criminal prosecution.
Enforcing discipline doesn't bring a bad name to a unit. So therefore this aspect of covering up is ridiculous. What gives a good name to the unit is the fact that you enforce discipline. So if someone commits something wrong, the unit's name, in fact, is enhanced if it is shown that you've taken action against the person who's committed the offence.
Reporting acts of sexual exploitation and abuse by UN, NGO and IOM staff is essential. But for incidents to stop, the agencies have to empower the communities and make them aware that they too can make complaints if they need to.
So this is the kind of the the box, and so who can report, and what kind of report they can do, and how long does it take, and to respond to the community when there is any kind of abuse by our staff.
Life with Dignity is an NGO based in Cambodia that supports rural livelihood practices in impoverished communities across the country. Today, staff from the organisation have invited members of this village to come and learn about staff codes of conduct and community-based reporting mechanisms.
Yeah, you can see, he tried to introduce this drawing, the representing of the LWD staff, who are staying in the field. When they are staying in the field, you can see, all the code they have to comply with.
Providing communities with a variety of channels to file a complaint and reassuring them that any complaints will be handled quickly and confidentially goes a long way towards breaking down any fears people have of reporting.
Now I know how LWD staff members have to behave. I will know what to do if something goes wrong.
Overcoming the fear of reporting goes hand in hand with creating culturally sensitive reporting mechanisms that people will actually use. Here, in an UNRWA clinic in the West Bank town of Ramallah, medical staff are sensitised to also recognise incidents of sexual exploitation and abuse perpetrated by UNRWA staff members.
We realise that the cases that have come forward, that generally not comes through the established reporting mechanisms, and it is clear that by empowering our frontline service providers to be sensitive to incidents of sexual exploitation and abuse is a much more effective way of allowing victims and survivors to come forward.
But no matter who makes the report or through which method they choose to make it, it is the responsibility of senior managers to handle all complaints quickly and effectively.
We have to recognize that such instances can happen, and the best way to deal with that is to make sure that when such instances do happen, that they come to the attention of senior management and they are dealt with swiftly and fairly.
If it does happen to you, please do not hesitate to come forward to tell us. And I, as executive director, would take the appropriate action.
The United Nations is the world's largest international organisation. Together with national and international partner organisations, it strives to maintain international peace and security, promote human rights, and be at the forefront of humanitarian aid and human development. To achieve these ends, UN, NGOs and IOM rely entirely on the people they employ.
Every day, vulnerable women and children count on the UN. They count on us for help and protection. Working to provide them is more than a mandate. It's more than a mission statement. It's a responsibility we take to heart. Every employee, every contractor, every partner.
The world entrusts the United Nations and all of our partner organizations with a noble mission to help those in need. Do not betray it. Let us rise to the occasion. Let us work with dignity, and let us serve with pride.